Thank you for coming into this interview, Rik and Susan.
Our pleasure.
So, gotta ask some basic starter questions.
Rik Flynn is my name. Formal name is Richard E. Flynn Jr. I hardly ever use it if I can get away with it, but it's the legal name that I have to use sometimes. And I'm 73 years old, almost 74 in August of the 12th.
My name is Susan Richmann. I kept my own name when my husband and I got married 44 years ago, actually. A week ago, 44 years. I know. Shocking to us, too. And I am 70.
Who was your favorite pet?
In the 60s, which were really tumultuous years for a lot of people in our age bracket, I got fascinated with lizards. And I bought myself a pet lizard. Oh, this lizard, by the way, we named Bert. And Bert, we got a collar for. And we used to take Bert for a walk on a leash and put it onto his collar. And you can imagine there were a number of neighbors that were very, surprised about that as a pet animal. So, and we had Bert for quite a long time, and all of a sudden we learned from somebody that was much smarter about lizards than we were that actually Bert was supposed to have been called Beatrice because Bert was female. And Bert lived a long, happy life with us for quite a while.
Rik was in a monastery. He was a brother. He was a monk.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you knew what he meant by the Marist brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What's the most interesting place you visited?
So we went along with about 15 people on this relatively small boat that went from Manaus, Brazil, to almost the very top of the last section of Brazil where the Amazon River flowed the other way, where it separates between what's called the white water and the dark water. So many experiences. That lasted for about 2 weeks, going day and night up this river, and it had 2 long canoes along with us. So 3 times a day, every day, once in the morning, once in the middle afternoon, and once at night, we went into these canoes and went sort of onshore or upstream to different places. The number of experiences we had were just phenomenal. There were indigenous folks that if they had seen white people at all, it was very rare, and some that I'm sure never saw white people before based upon their reactions. We had a guide from Great Britain that knew everything about animals and insects in the Amazon. And every time we would go out, like we went out at night, he would be telling us about the different animals that were there. It would be pitch black, and he'd see, I see these eyes, a British accent, he'd see these eyes over here, and he'd reach in and grab something, and he'd pull it out, and it was a crocodile, and it was,
God.
He would say, look, see this? And everybody was sort of like, yeah, I see it, get rid of it. It was.
We had the most amazing experiences. We got to visit 2 completely different indigenous communities and visit with the people there, stay overnight there, eat food with them, hang out with them. And each time we had to travel differently. For one of the communities, we had to drive by car, and we had to drive on a road that was just being made into a road through jungles. And at one point there were flames up on the side of the road, and other things happened. And I remember looking at Rik holding his hand and saying, what do you think about this? Are you sure we want to continue? There, we were invited by the healer and the main leader of the group to hike to this their most sacred space up in the mountains. Took us 8.5 hours one way to hike. When we got there, there was this very simple platform that they had built. All around us were mountains and what they call the Three Brothers waterfalls. There were 3 waterfalls that must have been, I want to say, a mile high.
Not quite that high, but they were very, very high.
You could barely see the top of them, and they were just falling down all around us. And
Which volunteer experience did you find the most meaningful?
The act of volunteering itself has been so fabulous because there have been so many wonderful opportunities and experiences, which is kind of like what motivated me so much to get excited about helping Ulster Corps to work, because I began to realize how needy so many people were. As I told you in an earlier conversation, after some of the first volunteer work that I did, so many people said, wow, this is great. How can I do more of this? I realized that there was really a vacuum in our culture, in our community, where people didn't know how to connect in order to be able to volunteer. If a person decides to do volunteer work, sometimes it can be very hard. Sometimes it's not quite the right match, but very, very often they're life-changing experiences and opportunities. So
I get so much back in return, even though I'm attempting to do something to help others, it's just so mutual. The one that came to my mind was a job I actually did for 3 years within Ulster Corps as a volunteer, was to recruit volunteers.
What's the happiest moment of your life?
Happiest moment of my life, I'm pretty sure Susan might say something very similarly, but was the birth of our daughter, Emily.
Connection, first of meeting Rik, and then a number of years later giving birth to Emily, whom we had in our former house, our old house. We had a home birth. Oh. And we had friends there who loved us, and our doctor who came to stay with us for 36 hours. And she was this amazingly calm, beautiful little baby that came out. Rik actually got to immediately catch her and then give her a bath. I was too exhausted to do anything at that moment. But yeah, that was definitely our happiest moment.
But what was the most important moment of your life?
The most important time was when I met Susan and we got married.
But it was something that happened within the last 10 years for me, and that was that I had a really clear realization that, at least for me, there is something divine, something that's a higher power, something in the world that organizes the universe and keeps our whole universe together, intact and moving. And I had an experience that indicated that to me. So that was the beginning of a very rich and ongoing journey with my spiritual life.
How would you like to be remembered?
The first and foremost thing that comes to mind over and over again is I would love to think that people would look back on me, upon me fondly, and that if I wasn't kind at times, at least I was trying to be kind. I think that's one of the nicest elements about being a human being, is kindliness.
I'd like to be remembered as a compassionate and kind person who put her efforts into making the world a better place.
That's not highfalutin.
Good for you.
Well, and by world, I don't mean I ever wanted to be president or a politician or anything like that. I just wanted to be a good person, a kind person, a compassionate person.
And finally, the greatest gift you can give yourself is what you give to somebody else, is when you're genuinely charitable, and it will make you a happy person, really and truly.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for the advice and for this interview in general. Your marriage and your volunteering and your travel, you're the kind of people I want to be when I'm your age.
What a great compliment.
Don't make us cry, Maitreya.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having us interviewed.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Bet.